Welcome to the 72nd episode of the GameFor Podcast. In this episode, we'll talk about why gaming negativity is not the answer. I'm Adam.
And I'm Matt.
And this is the GameFor Podcast. GameFor is a platform to help connect tabletop gamers and to help you get more out of your tabletop gaming. Matt and I are part of a software development design company called MilkCan. And because most of the folks at MilkCan love tabletop games, we developed the GameFor app and launched it in early 2018. We launched this companion podcast in June 2019 to help tabletop gamers get more enjoyment out of their hobby. Due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, we hibernated the GameFor app in July of 2020 and plan to bring back a retooled version of the app for Android, iOS, and web when gaming in person is safer. Until then, we'll keep bringing you this podcast to help you get more out of your tabletop gaming. I think I got through that pretty good this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad. So what's you've been doing a lot of hobbying lately, haven't you?
I've been doing almost none.
Yeah.
I had a lot of hobbying planned.
Sure.
I was big plans,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got my first big cold I think I've had in 3 years.
And it was not the COVID.
It was not the COVID.
You got that tested.
I did. Yeah. I finally. My wife was like, "Are you sure?" And so I finally tested, and no, it was negative.
Okay,
So.
well that's good.
But it was just not a fun one. It's just like a awful sore throat for a few days, junk running down my throat, and all that fun nasally stuff. So, But yeah, today I think is the first day I feel nearly 100%. Yesterday was like a 90%, which was still really good because
It's heading in the right direction.
yeah, I was for 3 or 4 days I basically stayed in bed and slept, which was not fun.
And it is not a good idea to hobby in bed.
No, and at Sunday night, I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit better. Maybe I can sit up and put some models together. And when I sat up, it was Kleenex time, and I decided that super glue and Kleenex was probably a bad idea.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So
Yeah, get Kleenex super glued to your fingers. That'd be
yeah,
or your nose. I
nose,
suppose.
or
that's a good
or
point
all
too.
three together.
Yeah, exactly.
It was going to be a bad
Go to the
time.
ER and you're like, it's a long story. You don't. That's no.
Lots of mistakes were made.
Yeah, no, it's not so great.
So yeah, no, I canceled my gaming on Saturday, but it sounds like or Sunday I think it was, and then we're rescheduled for this Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that, and then starting to get back into hobbying. But I did get some 3D printing going and some updating and some.
You got a new
organizing.
device for one of your filament printers.
I got a new wash station for my resin for printers.
Oh, I thought you got that thing that goes around the filament that keeps it warm.
Oh
and
yeah, I
stuff.
got that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got the dryer heater preheat treatment thing.
Yeah.
I got that box for the filament, which it seems like it works pretty well. And then I got so I should have less throwaway or
Because
bad.
the filament, when it gets, it
Certain filament-
absorbs moisture.
Even in a low, my basement's usually not too bad, 30%, 40% humidity, but even that, as it gets older, it absorbs a lot of water, and so yeah, it's best to kind of get that dry.
Yeah, that's why filament usually comes in those vacuum sealed bags.
Yep. So yeah, normally when I have something open, I'll throw it into a Tupperware, Rubbermaid, and I just keep all those old silica gels and
That's
bags,
a good
and I
idea.
throw them all in there and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's worked okay, but this way, kind of especially if it's sitting on the roll above the printer, if I don't have an active print going or towards the end of a roll, this kind of helps it out.
Yeah.
But then I got a new wash and cure station as well.
The resin stuff.
The new Elegoo Mercury X bundle.
Ooh, sounds like a spaceship.
Yeah. Well, I think every one of their machines is named after a planet.
Which very frequently they name rockets after, because there's been Mercury rockets, Saturn rockets.
Oh.
I don't think there's many Mars rockets. I don't remember them doing any Mars
No.
rockets, but yeah, you're right.
Ares rocket, so
Yeah.
is Greek and Roman names. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. What did I do? I finished up the Warp Fire Thrower, who is it's actually two tiny little Skaven dudes, and one is carrying a big tank full of warp fire, and the other one has got a nozzle and a hose and is shooting it at people. And They are my second. They're the penultimate, which is to say second to last unit for my current Skaven force. So I've been doing them on Twitch. They're basically done. I got to finish up the base, but otherwise the rest of the model is basically done. And then I started on Monday on the... Well, no, that's not true. Friday I started on the Storm Fiend. I started working on skin on the Storm Fiend. Storm Fiend is a giant rat who's in armor, but he's got kind of, he's ready to go to the gun show, if you know what I mean. He's got some bare arms, and he's muscular. And you can also see like his lower legs and some other stuff, but otherwise most of the rest of it's armor. But I got a bunch of the skin worked on pretty good on Friday of last week. Monday of this week I was working on armor. And so that's heading in the right direction. Also, this particular week on Twitch, I also was working on a piece of terrain. So I've got these 3 pieces of terrain that I want to build. And there was a day where it wasn't terrible outside, like it was in the high 30s or something like that when I got home from work. So I cut some MDF bases and for this terrain stuff.
Okay.
And the original... 2 of the things need a base because I'm building them a little bit more from scratch. One of them doesn't need a base, but it's a Reaper Bones piece of terrain called the Ruined Temple, or just Ruined Temple. Mm-hmm. And I picked it up from a local shop here in town when we were out at lunch one day, a couple of weeks ago. And because it's Reaper Bones, and I probably should have known this, it was very, very wavy. It does not lay flat.
Yeah.
Even though I put it in a bowl of hot water that I might nuked in the microwave, and then you do that, and it gets real flexible, and then you try to flatten out, and you put it into something cold and all that stuff, and then it just it was fine for like a day or so, and then it just sort of kind of was, yeah. So anyway, so basically to fix that problem, I just got some JB Weld, which is a 2-part epoxy.
Ooh, yeah, I've used that.
Yeah, and
I use it for pinball.
Oh, nice.
To attach metal stuff together.
Yeah. And so I got some of that I had, and this piece of MDF that I cut that's basically like kind of a rectangular thing, but I I kind of made the edges a little bit more organic and stuff, and ground, sanded them down and everything.
So would you cut that? Did you?
Oh, I use this thing called a RotoZip, maybe.
Okay.
It's a handheld thing. It's like a Dremel, but bigger and chunkier, much girthier.
Yeah, okay.
And it is. It has what looks like a drill bit on the front of it, or on the at the working end, but it's like a reverse drill bit, which is kind of hard to explain. Like it's not for, I don't know. It's like if you took the drill bit and you turned the parts upside. I don't know. It's what they use when they want to cut a hole in drywall. Like to put the electrical plug in. You just kind of plunge it into the wall.
Yeah, it's kind of like a router.
Yeah, it's a little routery, but it looks like a drill bit that's just going the wrong way. You know what I mean?
So it's like a trim router and all that stuff.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I bought it years ago because I'm like, I need something for cutting weird pieces that don't have to be straight on MDF that's quick, that's not a jigsaw. And the guy at the place was like, well, this will work. I'm like, cool. So, yeah, I use that to cut out the shapes.
I like that guy just was like, oh, yeah, okay, well, it's this one.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I'll take your word for it there, guy at the
but that's impressive, like, that he was like, oh, there's a tool for that.
That's what you, if you're doing it right, that's what you know when you work at a place like Lowe's or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I cut that out and all that stuff, and then JB Weld, and then many clamps, and then on Sunday, then I primed it and did some base coating and then whatnot with the airbrush. Used a bunch of those new Army Painter airbrush colors because they're in triad. So it'd be like dark gray and then light gray and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then on Monday night, as I was alternating back and forth between the Storm Fiend and then this terrain, what I was basically doing was just washes and kind of weathering and that kind of stuff. And then even some dry brushing towards the end. So nice. I just need to finish the base on it, and then it'll be ready to go. So that'll be cool. What else? I've been painting these 3D models that I got off of Etsy. They're resin printed stuff, and I've been working on those a little bit.
Nice.
They will be making some appearances in our future game, me and Vince, our next game that we're working on. So I can't talk about.
Do you guys have like a project name for it, like a secret codes project name that you?
No. We should though.
Yeah, you should. You
but
should.
We don't know.
But like do a better job than the guys that do the Suicide Squad.
Right. Yeah.
Like Project Starfish. Oh, it was a giant starfish.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. That wasn't that very well. No, it's people online, folks. People on my in my Patreon, and the folks that hang out sometimes also on Twitch. They've taken to calling it sometimes Rain in Space Hell, or Space Rain in Hell, or just
Space
a lot
Rain.
Space. No, well maybe, but yeah.
Would that
So
be like what was it? Chocolate Rain.
that was the different thing altogether.
Yeah.
Yes, but yes,
chocolate. I think Space Rain.
that guy followed me on Twitter once.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he just follows a lot of people on
Oh,
Twitter.
okay.
I don't know. It seems weird. But I was just like, Tazon Day followed me on Twitter. That Chocolate Rain guy. That's weird.
I'm impressed that you know the guy's name.
It's a memorable name.
Yeah.
And then otherwise I just I finally went back to doing some streaming on Twitch. So I've been doing that for a while. Streaming on Twitch on Saturday night. Playing that Viking video game, Valheim. I did that this last week as well.
Nice.
Yeah. So, what else? Well, we're going to be at the GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association Expo, their trade show, next week. So we'll be there from the March 14th to March 18th.
Yep.
So we'll be there talking to. We have a booth. We're in booth 144.
Yep.
And we'll be talking to folks about GameFor, not just the app. But we will be talking about the app and whatnot. We're learning a lot from the survey, by the way.
The surveys, the GameFor survey has been out for
a couple weeks.
Shortly,
because we mentioned it in the last episode.
And I think that's when it just come out.
Yeah.
Posting it.
Mm-hmm.
Good results so far, so we appreciate it when that's done it. We're going to keep it open until probably like the 21st or so, just to kind of get some late people in. But
it'll be just before Adepticon when we'll close it, because I think Adepticon's like 26th or something. But
we'll close it around Adepticon time. Those survey results, some stuff was like, oh, yep, we are doing the right things here, and then some stuff like, oh, okay, we'll prioritize that or change this.
Absolutely, it's been enlightening, which has been nice. So we'll be at GAMA, and then after that,
Adepticon.
I'll be at Adepticon. I think
you're
all
the whole
days.
Time, right?
Yeah, you're going to be there Friday, maybe Friday, Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be pre-selling ads for GameFor. We'll be talking about GameFor Consulting, which is the
that's the
tabletop kind of branch of our Milk Can websites and mobile. Software.
We've been working with a bunch of different tabletop companies over the last 2 years, doing website, mobile stuff, all kinds of different consulting and things like that. We've been working with Renegade Game Studios, who are a big board game company. We've been building websites for them. The Op.
We did the Cuphead companion app.
They did that Cuphead fast-rolling dice game, and we built the companion app for that. And
it was kind of cool. You picked that up, and it actually talks about the app on the back of the box.
I bought the game, and on the back it says, and check out our free companion app and all that stuff. So that was cool. And then we've worked with Battle Foam in the past on their custom tray creator and stuff like that. So we want to talk to more, because there's a lot of publishers and manufacturers and stuff at this convention. That's why you go and kind of talk to those folks, but also talk to the store owners and get some feedback and all that jazz. It'll be a hoot.
And people from the industry like working with us because we're tabletop gamers. So it kind of knocks down having to explain the vertical to other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like this or this, and
because how many times have we been in a meeting where we've been like, but what about like this kind of thing, or like, and because we understand tabletop gamers,
most of the time we reviews their product, or we're like, it'd be really cool if you guys did this, and like, that's a fantastic idea.
Whereas a normal tech company would be like, okay, well, we don't know what you're selling, but we'll build you a thing.
Right, it's widgets.
Exactly.
You're selling widgets to Wadgets people.
Widgets to Wadgets?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. All right, let's put that on a shirt.
Widgets to Wadgets.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, today's topic. It kind of came actually from the GameFor survey, which, by the way, if you're interested in still filling out the survey, check the show notes. There'll be a link there. If you're listening / watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description as well. But one of the questions we ask in there is like, hey, what kind of topics do you think we should do for the podcast? And this was this is based off of a topic that it was a kind of a long topic suggestion that was more of a paragraph.
It kind of went in, I think they started off as a topic and then it went into a rant, but at the same time it was a really good idea.
Yeah.
From it, so...
But the idea basically was that the art of critique seems to have somewhat been lost in modern communication, which I get. And talking about how instead of saying I like this game, or I think that instead it's about how very frequently on the internet it can be very negative.
On the internet, you say?
Well, yes.
Negative. See, that was sarcasm,
the hell you
folks.
say. I get that. Yes, I do. And talking about how like
my stuff's better than yours, and
or this company's doing everything wrong, and you're like, yeah, but what do you like? And
like, you're not a real gamer if you buy Games Workshop stuff, or
right? Or I like this game because I don't like that game, and that kind of stuff. Like, and just focusing on that kind of stuff, whether it is in social media, whether it is in content creation, whether it's just in your interactions with people at the local game store.
Right? They're like, oh, you play that, you're an idiot.
Right? Exactly.
Like, oh.
So, here's the deal. As it turns out, and I've found this out relatively recently as a person who is a half-century old, there can be a lot of negativity in the world. No, I know, it's weird.
Yep.
And that's, we find that in everyday life. We find it in a lot of places. Some people will say there's more than there used to be. I think that it's just that we can get access to it quicker because of the internet.
That, and I think there's rose-colored glasses.
Sure, everyone does think that back when they were a kid, everything was awesome. That's because when you're a kid, everything is awesome. You ride your bike all day. And
right,
whatever,
your parents at the time were always like, if you think you're under a lot of stress now, just wait. And you're like,
yeah,
you don't understand the stress I have to go through. Like right now, I don't know if John's going to play Matchbox cars with me at recess.
Right.
Or if I brought the right Matchbox car today. That is stress, Mom and Dad.
I remember I was a kid, my cousin yelled at his parents at one point, and he was, 7, and it was because he was angry because every day his job was he had to raise the blinds in his room, and he also had to put away his clothes.
Wait, and?
So he had to do 2 things. And his dad's like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, you only have to do 1 thing. You just have to go to work every day. I have to do these 2 things. And it was just, so,
I laugh, but I was totally on that.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. But that's what happens when you're a kid, and people look back on that, and that's the way it works. So the negativity in the world, indeed. But... And I want to be perfectly clear here that this is not some sort of, keep politics out of my gaming hobby kind of rant. We're not saying, but we believe in equity and that everyone should be able to play tabletop gaming and enjoy it and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Enjoyment, however, is the key. Like, that's the thing about this, right? So that's, I think, what we're trying to point at. We're not saying, if there's some sort of problem that's happening in the hobby, that is specifically to a lack of equity or, messing with people's rights or just any kind of problem like that.
Right.
That's bad, and that's something that needs to be fixed. But
this is more of like bringing others down to bring yourself up.
Exactly.
Or bringing other games down to bring the game you like up.
Exactly, yeah. You may decide that you don't like, like a specific game. Maybe you don't like a specific genre. I'm not super into board games.
Right.
But that's just me.
Yeah, you don't go to your local game store and knock all the board games off the shelf. like you're stupid for having board
I know
games.
all the local game owners. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, but yeah. But anyway, so maybe it's the style that you don't like in a game. Maybe beyond genre. Maybe it's like, oh, I hate worker placement games, or I don't like fantasy, or whatever.
Right.
Maybe it's the artwork. Maybe it's the company. Maybe it's the pricing. And sometimes it's just you don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it. You're like, I just don't. This game rubs me the wrong way, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine.
And you should focus on that and talk about it to everyone about how you despise and hate that certain thing.
wait, no, that's the opposite.
Oh,
That's that's
wrong podcast.
Right, yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do, as it turns out. The best thing to do generally in this instance, when there's a game that is just not to your liking, or a genre, or an art style, or whatever it might be, is to just don't waste any thought on it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get angry about board games because there's no point to it, and I shouldn't be getting angry about it. I just don't play them generally. There's a couple here and there actually that I do sometimes play. It's rare, but it happens. But like when board games were like, and they're not necessarily blowing up like they were. There was definitely a time 4 or 5 years ago when board games were absolutely just unhinged on how much they were selling, right?
Yeah.
And right now it's a little bit less so. But I was not, out there yelling at clouds, telling them to stop. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. It's just like, oh, that's
Right.
But you still get that a lot from people, specifically gamers. Gamers are, and this is going to be a hot take, frequently opinionated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say that I'm not one of those people. I mean, you can have opinions.
We're opinionated about how opinionated they are.
Whoa. But it's just, I don't know. I guess the point here is,
you're not going to change someone's mind by yelling.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Like look at the rest of the discourse in the world.
Right,
Just screaming at each other doesn't seem to work, and it happens a lot. You know what I mean?
If I go tell you how stupid Magic the Gathering is,
Sure.
and that your Friday nights would be better off painting minis, I'm not going to destroy Friday Night Magic.
No, it's not going to bring down the empire. It's not. I mean, and it shouldn't. Like that's the thing,
Right.
You know what I mean? That's like telling somebody their favorite music is stupid, or like telling somebody that their favorite color is stupid. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it just doesn't make any sense. And you get, and this should be obvious.
I mean, the only time it's ever worked is with disco, right?
That totally worked.
Someone killed disco. We don't know how, but it got killed.
There's a guy named Clyde.
Yeah.
He wore that shirt that said "Disco sucks," and then it died. Yeah,
So unless you're
it's the
Clyde,
only time that ever worked. But yeah, so if let's say you want to become a gaming advocate, which is a good thing, I think.
Yep.
You are interested in getting people interested in gaming, specifically the game that you like, and that's fine. We've talked about that kind of thing in the past. We did an episode about becoming a tabletop gaming advocate not that long ago.
No,
episode 61 is what I've got.
Yeah,
in my
and that was just about bringing people into the hobby. Yep.
Right, and then if you go back to the early days of this podcast, back when we were tiny children, episode 2.
Wow.
Yes, exactly.
That was like 70 ago.
Yeah, I know. What to do if your favorite game isn't popular.
Yep.
And that was again about like teaching people not about just tabletop gaming in general, but about like, hey, you should play this game. And if you go back and listen to that, you will not find us saying what the first step to getting people to play the game you like is to downplay and get angry and badmouth the other game that you don't like.
Right.
That was not one of the suggestions.
We were so naive.
I know, well,
no,
I'm fine with that.
Yes, no, it's good. Yeah,
yeah. So, but there are a lot of people out there on the internet and stores and and whatever, maybe even at tournaments. I don't know as much as tournaments, but definitely I've seen people at stores tell people, yeah, no, that game's dead. No, that you don't want this, or that game's dumb, or whatever about the game that they're playing. Exactly. And obviously it's happened on the internet. Amazing, I know. But they there are people out there who do want to be an advocate for the game that they like. And that's great. I mean, when you do it in a way where you're like, I'm going to talk about this game, I'm not going to mention this other game that I think is, that's just, it's a flies with honey situation, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't have to take away from something else to build yours up.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. I've always kind of believed, and I've seen this reiterated by people in a lot of ways. And then there's something I don't know if it's a specific phrase or not a catchphrase. You know what I mean? I can't think of. Yeah. Well, but if you're going to build the biggest building in town, you don't do it by tearing down the other buildings in town. You know what I mean? Like if you've decided I want to be the biggest building, and you build a 4-story building, and then destroy all the buildings that are taller, then you're like, well, now I've got the biggest building in town. That's not the way to do things, frankly.
Yeah, no, that sounds like somebody I've heard about, but yeah.
Yeah, now, I also don't particularly, I'd be perfectly honest with you, too, I don't need to be the biggest building in town. This is me.
Right.
I'm a fan with having a. I'm a fan of having a building that I like to live in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that that's also a problem that we see a lot too in discourse about tabletop gaming in general, is that there's a lot of like brand loyalty, this what I like, not what you like, and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't need to be that way. Like you were telling me about that the brewery that you were talking about recently.
This just got posted this week, and I thought it fit in really well with this. There's a local brewer, Zambaldi Beer, in the Green Bay.
Hashtag not an ad.
Yep,
But they could send you free beer if you wanted to.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't turn it down. And they were talking about that this week their malt delivery, I believe it was their malt delivery, got delayed. So they're at the point where in their brewing process, and I know just enough to be dangerous, but I don't. So if I'm explaining this wrong, all our brewing advocates out there,
sure,
please forgive me. But they needed to add their bag of malt, and they were a bag short because their shipment didn't come in. It got delayed.
They take the malt out of the bag, right?
Right.
Okay,
I think so.
Just dump the whole bag in there.
Right. But so they contacted other local brewers because they all are in a little network together, and explained the situation. And one of the other brewers, Titletown Brewing, which I really like their stuff.
Also
Again, not an ad, but.
Yeah.
But threw a bag in their truck, drove over and gave them the bag of malt, and just said, when yours comes in, just give us one from that. And they were talking about, like how people always ask them about their competitors, and they're like, well, we're not really competitors. Yes, we're different companies, but we like each other's beer and stuff like this. We help each other out because it helps out the whole community and as a whole. Like we don't have to tear each other down. We can promote each other and make each other better by doing that. And I just thought that was a perfect way to kind of explain that, like we don't have to, I don't have to make, if I want to play Dungeons and Dragons,
right,
I don't have to tell people that play Pathfinder they're idiots.
Right.
Or vice versa. Or I can play both.
Exactly. That's the other thing, too, is that I think that a lot of people get into this sort of brand loyalty sort of thing where I have to do this one thing versus another. Now, maybe not so much in board gaming, but there are definitely people out there, I suppose, who have like, I only like to play board games from this one company or maybe even this one designer, maybe. I mean, there's probably not a lot.
Or at least the types. Like, they're like, you're playing worker placement? Those, I played worker placement too when I was 5.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like
I mean, like if you like a particular type of game, then just enjoy it and play with the people that also enjoy it. But there's no reason to be like, oh no, I don't want to. Yeah, it's that. I mean, you can even say no, I don't prefer this type of game. But to get like, I don't know. I think it's just the tone of it, honestly. It's the kind of going on attack almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's times when I don't want to play super crunchy games because it's like, it's been a tough week and my brain is taxed, so I can't play a game where I need to really do some heavy mathing and stuff. I'd rather play a very lightweight game. That doesn't mean that the crunchy games suck.
Right,
or
no.
the person who wants to play it sucks and is wrong.
Yeah, it's a situation as well, again, kind of like getting back to that brand loyalty thing where, and we see this a lot, obviously, in tabletop wargaming, miniatures and such. You definitely get people who are like, I only play one game. That's what they've decided to focus their life on, and hitch their wagon, if you will, and that can be problematic, I think, as well, especially when a lot of people do respond. Like when someone says, "Oh, I like this game," which is not the game that this person likes. Like I did a video years ago about why people dislike other people's choices, and very frequently it's out of fear or something like that, because you're like, well, if people start liking this other game and not the game that I like, well, then I'm not going to have people to play with anymore. I'm not going to have the company's going to go under and not be able to make more miniatures or more paints or whatever the deal is. And that's to some degree in a far off land, possibly slightly true. But for the most part, no. There's a lot of people on this planet and you can like multiple things. And it's, I don't know, like it's, I think
it's not like it's not Coke versus Pepsi where if I like Pepsi more than Coke, then I'm not going to ever drink Cokes. I'll drink both.
Sure.
Some people won't because they don't like it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't. If you haven't noticed, both of them are doing pretty well for each other.
They do seem to do just fine. It's they've got record profits. I remember as a kid seeing ads on TV for Coke and Pepsi, and as a kid I had this weird, I was like, why is it that when Coke makes an ad, it's about Coke, and when Pepsi makes an ad, it's about Coke? Like, it was the thing that happened repeatedly. Like, Coke would make an ad and be like, "Hey, Coke, brings Coke to life," or I don't know, whatever. I don't remember any of their slogans back in the day.
Enjoy a Coke. Yeah,
yeah, but Pepsi would make ads about how if you drank Coke, you were old. There were these little kids that were drinking Coke, but they all were walking around like old people, and there was a bunch of old people that were drinking Pepsi, and they were skateboarding and stuff like that, or whatever. And I was always just it seems odd that Pepsi focuses so much on their competitor instead of just focusing on trying to get people to buy their own stuff. And it wasn't all the time, and I don't see that anymore these days. I think that to some degree, specifically, big companies have gotten to the point where they're like,
I think they start. Yeah, so I think some still are, but some are starting to realize. I think that
yeah,
it's not working.
And I got to be honest, I don't know any companies. And if you folks who are listening, if you've got some, drop it in the comments or whatever. I don't know any companies in the game industry that snipe at each other or do that. I've not seen any advertising that's oh well, at least it's not this game.
Yeah, unless it's in jest, lighthearted, giving each other a hard time because
maybe on Twitter or something, I guess,
or in person they'll be
sure, oh yeah, but I suppose if they see each other at a convention, the people who work there, but that's just people.
But at Gamma, everybody kind of talks to one another, hangs out, and
yeah. Well, it's like the brewer people,
Yeah.
They're because here's the thing: craft beer is kind of a hobby to some degree, right? And so, there's this saying that goes around about rising tides raise all ships. So for these companies to be sniping at each other and going negative constantly, it's not a political race. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not just one winner. Everybody can do just fine. I think for me, it's a sense of fairness. I've always been kind of a fan of that.
Yeah, it's market share too. It's not there. If 100% of people played tabletop, did tabletop. 100%, then
all the people on the planet.
Maybe there's a reason why you need to shift the market.
Right.
But because not 100%, it's the market can still grow together.
Yeah.
If you get a new person to come into your market, okay, so I didn't do miniature gaming until a while ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm buying tons of miniatures and paints and everything
3D
else.
printing.
So I helped out, I'm buying GW paints and Army Painter paints and Vallejo and Monument and all that. All of them benefited from me entering the hobby.
Right,
now, if
exactly.
I started getting into it and they're well, our GW paints only work on GW models,
right,
or
exactly,
something like that. Then I'd be oh, okay, this doesn't seem like fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's no winner for brands. They, there are definitely in certain categories there are definitely brand loyalty. I've always heard, and I've never been a snowmobiler, but I have always heard that in parts of northern Wisconsin, during the winter, if you snowmobile up to a certain bar with the wrong brand of snowmobile, well, that's not good.
I'd be shocked if that was true, though.
That's what I've heard, and I'm that's a marketer's wet dream, is what that is right there. That kind of brand loyalty. That's silly.
I can't see anyone being, because
I remember I was working security at a music festival, a country music festival that took place here in town years and years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And there was this big honking truck parked in the grass in some of the parking area.
Yeah.
It was big and shiny and all that kind of stuff. And another country music fan walked by and said to his friend, and he's like, "Hey, that's a pretty nice truck, except for that little blue problem on the front," and because it was a Ford.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. Anyway, so again, there's no winner in brands. Even
NASCAR was very Ford versus Chevy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, that's a definite. But you almost never see any ads coming out of either of those companies that make fun of the other company or tell you know what I mean. It's just not a thing you see as much these days in big corporate brands.
Yeah, it's gone away from it.
Yeah.
Like the 90s, and early 2000s, it was like Ford trucks, tough, and yeah,
Sure,
the truck wars were.
But they'll talk about their own stuff. It's rare that they seem to talk about other stuff. Where a lot of the negativity comes from in brands comes from the people who are buying.
Yeah,
comes from the people who are playing. Comes from those folks.
Well, it seems like it comes out in like sports as like.
Oh yeah,
racing,
sports is a different kind
but I'm
of
saying
thing.
like racing. You got. I think you kind of got like the Ford versus with the racing, like when you got,
sure.
Like if you watch like the Ford versus Ferrari stuff with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the brands and stuff like that, really started to do that.
Yeah, but that's because it's related specifically to a team.
Right, and I think that's
mean?
where people started taking over.
Yeah, I could see
associating
that.
the brands with the teams, and
yeah, I could definitely see that. But I think that where we see it in gaming is, like I said, it's not coming from the game companies themselves generally. It is more often than not coming from the players, the purchasers, whatever, that kind of stuff. And we frequently see it online a lot, and we see it both in places like Twitter and Facebook and whatever, but we also see it a ton in, content creation. And I'm saying this as a content creator.
right,
You know what I mean? There is a lot of people out there. There's a lot of folks out there that,
especially the clickbaity stuff.
well, I mean, that's the thing, is that the reason that people do clickbait type of stuff is because it kind of works.
Yeah, I was
going to
say, but it does work. If we title this podcast, "Why Your Negativity Is Ruining Tabletop,"
Right, exactly.
versus
5 reasons why your negativity is ruining tabletop. Number 3 will blow your mind.
How to be positive about tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
One is the one that's more like in your face and
Humans-
it's going to get more clicks.
Humans love conflict to some degree. Like, it's part of our weird lizard brain, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it is a situation that gets clicks. I mean, we've seen it in the news industry. And I'm not even talking about, tabletop gaming news, just regular news.
Right.
That the news industry has changed drastically over the last 20 years because of online versus picking up a paper at the stand.
Well, in the 24-hour
flipping a guy
news
a
cycle
quarter or
too,
whatever.
right? It's
Well,
like
that true. Yeah, exactly.
we have to fill up 24 hours of content versus half an hour every day.
Right, exactly. But the thing is that with all of the conflict and all of that kind of stuff that gets talked about online and all of that, again, in any of these kinds, in tabletop gaming, there is no specific winner for these brands. You can have multiple favorites and have things that you don't care about at all. You can be like, I like this and I like this. And they're like, well, what about that? I'm like, yeah, that's not my area of interest, and it's not, or I've tried it and I didn't enjoy it. Like, I get people that ask me all the time, viewers and stuff in comments that ask me all the time, oh, well, why don't you ever talk about Infinity? Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people like Infinity, and I know that it sells pretty well. I have tried demos of that game like 2 or 3 times, and it's just never struck me. And I'm not even 100% sure why. There's something about it that that particular game style. I like skirmish, don't get me wrong. I like sci-fi. Like, it should be something that I dig, but there's just something about the actual rules that just kind of puts me off. And I'm not going to say that it's a bad game.
Right. You didn't do like 10 videos of how
exactly
if you
about
play
like
Infinity, you're
right.
infinite wrong.
Exactly. Infinite wrong. Nice. Yeah, no, it's just like I'll play other stuff. And that's, I think, what we need to try to do a little bit more. And not just for content creators, although obviously we do need to do that. But I think also just, in general interactions, you're at the game store and people ask you about a game, maybe, hey, have you played this? And it's a game you don't like. You could be like, oh, I've given it a try. It's not quite for me, and here's why. But not just like, yeah, that game sucks. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that not only causes people to, I mean, sure, it causes someone maybe not to buy that game, but it also very probably causes them not to be nearly as interested in tabletop gaming.
Yeah, they'll not reach out or anything. Like, if, we were kind of talking about this before, and I swear I don't have a drinking problem, that, if you, like, one of the local brewers, I was sitting there, and a group of guys came in, and it was like, you could tell one guy was really into craft beers, his other friends were not.
Right.
And they're like, the bartender's like, well, what do you like? And the guy said Bud Light. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go by, the hipster movement or all this stuff, you would think they'd be like, spray him with a thing of water and tell him to get out of their bar or something
like you do
that.
with a cat that's being naughty.
Right.
Psst,
like Coyote Ugly or whatever. But instead of that, they're like, oh, okay, well, we've got this beer that's a little bit lighter, and a lot of people that like that style. This is a good beer that kind of hits that palate, so why don't you try this out and tell us if you like it?
Yeah. If you walked into a craft beer place like that and you're like, I've never really tried out craft beers, I'm mostly into like Bud Light, and they just were like, yeah, great, whatever.
Well, yeah.
You would leave, and then you wouldn't go back, and there you go. But if they're like, oh, okay, well, we've got something that's kind of like that, it's heading in that direction. Like that's the advocacy that we're looking for.
Right. This one is you might find it's good for this palate, and maybe it has this a little bit of different taste. So they brought people in. If someone tells you that, like when you say, hey, I play tabletop board games, and they're like, oh, cool, I really like Monopoly or Scattergories or something like that.
Sure.
Your first comment should not be,
well, that's not really a board
that's
game.
not really a board game.
Right, or
that's a horrible game.
Yep.
Because they're going to immediately, one, just turn away from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Two, they're going to think you're a jerk.
Exactly.
Instead go, oh, okay, yeah. No, I that game, I've played some games that are like that. And then here's a game, there's some other games that I like even better than that I play.
If you like financial games like Monopoly, maybe you'd like to try out Acquire, who was by Avalon Hill and is now owned, I think, by Hasbro.
Yeah, or like Power Grid. Or
yeah,
exactly. Controlling stuff, and it's got more market shifting and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I like that because it's a little less luck involved. There's more strategy. There's even deeper strategies.
Yeah,
and be okay that they go, oh yeah, that seems too difficult for me.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's the thing. Negativity drives away people who are interested in the hobby. That's just if a person's like, I'm interested in dipping my toe or finding out more, and all they get is negativity. Not even them being told, oh, you shouldn't do this or you're wrong or whatever. I'm talking about like, they ask you a question about a game, and you're like, yeah, no, that game, I mean, like just that kind of stuff. You can just be like, if you don't like that game, you could even, very frankly, you could just be like, oh, you could lie. You could be like, oh, I haven't really tried that game. I don't know much about it.
Or
but,
like, hey, I might not be the best person to ask about that.
Exactly.
But this is what I've heard from other people that do like that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Like like we said, you get more bees, ants, flies. With honey? I've never seen do flies like honey?
Apparently.
They like garbage. Well, anyway. Flies are probably... I'm not trying to teach a fly a tabletop game. Number one, first of all, they are...
I don't know what it's instead of. You catch more flies with honey.
You would catch them with poop.
Right, but like it doesn't say like you catch more flies and honey than vinegar.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's vinegar. Flies and honey than vinegar.
Do the flies get stuck in the honey? Probably.
I think it's because it's sweet versus the vinegar, which is...
Yeah, I don't know. That's good. My mom uses apple cider vinegar to get fruit flies, though.
Yeah.
That's weird. I think that saying is dumb. Anyway, where the heck was I? Negativity. Exactly. There you go. Negativity will drive people away, obviously, that are interested in the hobby, but can even, in many situations, drive people out of the hobby who've been in it for a while. If you are a person who likes to play this particular game and you've been playing it and enjoying it, you and your friends, whatever it is, but there's just constant negativity online about what this company is doing.
Or how this game isn't really a real game. It's not challenging enough. Or
they've changed it and it's not cool like it used to be, or the price has gone up. And these are, let's be perfectly honest, all of these things can be valid things that you...
Of why you don't like it.
Right. It can be an opinion, but there's no reason necessarily to constantly just lead with, well, this is bad and this is bad and this is bad and this is bad. And I'm not even talking about like toxic even positivity. It's just that I think it's a better idea to focus on the things that are in the hobby that you do like. If everything in the hobby is something you don't like, then maybe this hobby's not for you. That's just a thing. I don't know. Being toxic about another player's choices is just it doesn't help the game that you like overall, or the overall hobby.
Right, and it's easy to be that critic. Like it's easy to say,
oh yeah, it's easy to fall back on that kind of stuff.
The movie sucks because of this plot hole or this or that. Sometimes it's fun just to watch a movie and just enjoy it. Like there's times,
or not,
right? Or not.
I'm a big fan of RoboCop. I love RoboCop. I've watched that movie probably 50 times. And then in 2014, they made a reboot.
Sounds about right, yep.
And I kind of watched a trailer or two, and I was just like, rather than starting like a Twitter war or, some sort of issue or whatever, or complaining on Facebook or, Facebook was around 2014. I just didn't watch it. And it's okay. I've gone on with my life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I've never understood the concept of hate watching something. I hear that term. And I think there's also people who also hate play certain games. And I'm like,
right.
Games are supposed to be fun. That's the point. That's literally the point of games, is to enjoy yourself and have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, just enjoy it. And sometimes people are like, you're like, oh, there's plot holes in this movie. I don't care that there's plot holes.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a popcorn.
At the end of the day, is it a net positive or a net negative? If everything about the movie you didn't enjoy it, okay, cool. Then
don't watch it again.
Don't watch it again. And don't spend any brain time on it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the big important thing. I think that there's a lot of people out there. There's the term about, this thing lives rent free in my head. And I think there's a lot of gamers out there who their least favorite game spends a lot of time rent free in their heads. And I'm like, why don't you think about and concern yourself about, if this thing is bad, then instead of just talking about how it's bad, just instead talk about how you like this thing and do
what do you like?
Yeah, exactly. But don't be like, I like this thing because this other thing is bad. Even that doesn't make any sense either. I don't know.
It's I like this because I like this.
Exactly. The world is tough enough, I think, and tabletop gaming, I think, should be for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Wise words.
Well, I did write them down. Or did you? I don't remember.
No, I think you wrote that one down.
There you go. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the GameFor Podcast. If you've got questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you're listening via your favorite podcast player or just aren't into the whole YouTube comments section thing, then you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@iamgamefor.com. You can also keep up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out our website at www.iamgamefor.com. That is www.iamgamefor.com. Thanks.